Hi everyone, it's my absolute joy, as always, to reintroduce Magenta Pixie to you. We've had at least two really rich conversations because I asked Magenta certain questions a week or so before we have this chat, and she is extremely expert at channeling the collective consciousness of nine. So what that does is really add flesh to the bones of what I'm seeing as the astrological architecture of our times. And so I'm really looking forward to this discussion. I've already had a very full conversation with David Farrell, plant medicine expert. I'll put the link for that video below, and that will give you a lot of astrological information. But that primarily this video will be Magenta sharing her channeling about the energies running into the solstice, the summer solstice, winter solstice in the southern hemisphere, what they have in store and what it means for us in terms of our evolution of consciousness. So I'm so excited because I think this is going to be very big news for people. So Magenta, over to you. Where do you want to start? Do you want to start about the run-in of the energies coming up to this time with the Cancer solstice?
Absolutely, I can do and I will do. And I just wanted to say thank you again. This is our third chat. It's been amazing. As I was saying to you before we started recording, I've had so many people contact me saying that they found me through our videos and they've been introduced to my work, which is wonderful. Other people who followed us both are so happy when we get together because, as you say, we're coming from different perspectives, but the information is so in alignment, and the energy is created between us, and those that watch us are able to pick that up and feel that for themselves. And I've had people say after watching our chats, they've had all sorts of activations, or the entire information has been a trigger to everything that they knew inside, and it's just brought their knowing out. So I've had so many emails I couldn't count about the two that we've done already. So yeah, fabulous.
Fantastic. Well, really looking forward, because I think if people understand the astrological information, you add so much richness to what I've been saying, and equally it works the other way around. So there's a kind of a crystallization and a validation as we go with us coming at the meaning from different points of view. So yeah, I really love these conversations. So
I do. I do
over
too.
to you, Magenta.
Okay, so before I start talking about the run up to the solstice, the energy we're in now, I brought forward transmission a while ago about the solstice, and I've asked the 9 further questions, asked them to clarify, because the information that came through was incredibly metaphoric, as it often is, and presented not just as information, but presented as an activation package. So those metaphors are activating individuals that listen. And I know that, but I would like to know more about those metaphors, and perhaps for the 9 to clarify them in a slightly different way, maybe in a more scientific or grounded way rather than metaphoric, just so that I can share more about that particular piece that they have spoken about. And I found that in the information that came through, it really created an epiphany in me about something. Now, I've always been aware of, obviously energies and stargates and the land and the ley lines, but I've never really truly had a very good clarity as to what a stargate actually is. What does it mean when a stargate is activated? And I'm talking about a stargate on the Earth, not necessarily a stargate within. I understand that and what that means. But when you go to a sacred site, let's say, what does it mean to be at that sacred site? And I had an epiphany through the information that came through. And what they're talking about is these grids or networks. And one of them is time. The other one is space. So you have time, linear time that we perceive in our reality as we go forward, and space as in locational, geographical. And when the time and the geographical location line up, then that activates this portal, which is a series of crossovers of these grids. So they create like these vortices that look like fractalized roses energetically. And when you stand in that space, you go through a Stargate. So what does that mean? I mean, I always perceived that to mean, would there be some kind of light opening up? Would I find myself in another dimension? But what it actually means, certainly for now, it's not to say that these Stargates won't actually create a different kind of experience as we go forward more and more. But right now, when we stand in that rose vortex, it's a memory download. We can have these everywhere. We don't have to be in a certain time or a certain location. We can access this all the time. But it's like a power up to that when we are guided to go to a certain place, stand in one of these vortices, these Stargates, at a certain time, on a certain day. Obviously, the solstice is one of these days. And then you stand there and you get a memory download, a light download. And it's just a frequency or energetic receiving from the Earth and the galactic and the sun, the moon, whatever it may be. And then it can take time to unravel that package as it comes through in one energetic monadic structure as an entire library, if you will, a codex. And then we go away and unravel it. And I didn't quite put that together about this movement of this time grid and space grid coming together on these moments. So that came in because I asked a question about a part of the channeling that came forward was about Scotland and its significance at this time. They spoke about other places as well, but Scotland specifically. And so I brought forward information about that. And that's where they're telling me is one of the most powerful Stargates that have ever been opened on this planet in this time period, as in this epoch since Atlantis. So in this post-Atlantic period, the time of this solstice and the space or locational geographical point of this place in Scotland is creating the most powerful Stargate that's ever been. And when I ask them what they mean by most powerful, they're saying the most fractalized energy created within this rose vortex by all these crisscrossing grid lines at that particular point. So these are happening to other places. These Stargates are all opening up and being activated. We had a major clearing occur at the Lions Gate portal in 2022, clearing through these ley lines or energetic lines on the planet. And now that's allowed these node points, these crossover places of these grids to actually formulate. So the most powerful, as in where there are most intersecting grid lines. So you're going to get the highest memory activation, but you have to be receptive yourself. You have to be in alignment and have these grid lines and vortices and matrices open in you. If you don't have that and you stand in that place on that day, it's going to do nothing, or it might do something, but you know, you might not know. If you're in that alignment and flow, and you know, you're able to open up your own fields, and you stand in these places, and then you'll feel them. So that's just
you've talked a lot about the south of England as well, Magenta, as being particularly powerful, as a kind of almost a birthing center for a lot of these new energies.
Exactly, yes. And they mentioned that in the channeling, that the south of England is kind of seeding this. So this portal in Scotland is another. With the south of England, it's a seeding and it's a beginning that's then allowing that to go through the planet, and it's the birthing point, as you say. And they said it's in the location where you, our conduit, and she who is the whatever label they gave you last time has come forward about she who walks hand in hand with Jupiter and Venus, us coming together and where we reside. So that's the south of England. But this Scottish one, this fractalized energy vortex that looks like a rose, and it's like infinite, is in Scotland. So it's just a node point, and there are many of them, many sacred sites. Also, the other thing they did say was, where you might think the sacred site is, where it's presented to be, sometimes it is that. It's exactly where it's being said it is by multiple different energy workers across the planet, or whoever is giving this information. But sometimes they are so powerful and very much hidden behind the veil, and so they're a little bit away from the main sacred point. So you might think, oh, it's here, but really it could be half a mile around the corner, or just through the trees, or it's not exactly the actual core point, isn't exactly where the sacred site is. It's a little bit out because it's hidden. And that's not something I can give. That has to be the traveler that goes there and allows themselves to feel and find it, as using their own body as a dowser to find where that place is.
Yeah.
I mean, where I'm talking about in Scotland, they haven't confirmed, but they're saying that this is the crossover point of the rose line, and it creates this rose quantum vortices point. I think they're talking about the Rosslyn Chapel.
I was going to exactly that was in my mind. I was going to ask that.
Yeah, I mean, they haven't actually confirmed it, and because they said this extra bit to me, does it mean it's kind of 2 minutes walk away from the Rosslyn Chapel? Is it around the corner? Is it in the courtyard? Is it a mile down the road? I don't know. But the Rosslyn Chapel, I think that's what they're talking about. So if anyone has access to that place on the day of the solstice, and the point is 3:33, even though I know the actual solstice is a couple of hours later, they're saying that moment is 3:33, and they say the time of the Green Witch, which is Greenwich.
It's 3:20. It's 15:20, 3:20 in the afternoon. It's the exact solstice in the UK. So they're 3:33.
They're saying 3:33 because of the power of the 333, and it's a rose. 333 makes a rose, and you've got this rose portal at what I believe to be the Rosslyn Chapel at this meeting place of the rose vortices. But they don't give out this kind of information that could fall into let's say a different perspective, at the hands of a different perspective, which is why I think that the Rosslyn Chapel is a marker point, and the actual vortex, this Stargate, is somewhere in the vicinity that you have to find yourself, because it wouldn't be given out as information. It's given out as a guide or a map. So 3:33, but they said the time of the Green Witch. Well, having spoken to them further, I realized they're talking about Greenwich Mean Time, Greenwich Mean Time, Green Witch.
Of course. I mean, of course.
So it's English time. It's English time. So you need to find out, wherever you are in the world, on the 21st of June, what time is it where you are when it's 3:33 in the UK, because that's the time of this time portal. And then allow yourself to be led to whichever sacred space or sacred site, or create your own crystal grid or whatever you're going to do. Allow that to be your guidance, but the time is 3:33. And if you are near the Rosslyn Chapel and can get there, or if you are in Scotland yourself, then that's guidance for you to. Wow. And potentially, if you are supposed to go there, you've probably already had this information, and this is confirmation anyway. So, but for me, it's an epiphany regarding the time and the space coming together in these grid points as they move. I mean, the Nine have always spoken about this, but it's never really sort of.
But that's what the birth chart is. Any birth chart I calculate, I need location and time.
Yes, of course.
That's what I do. Location and time. So each crossing point of time and space produces a birth chart.
And it's like I knew that intellectually, but it just hadn't sunk into an epiphany where I think, oh my goodness. Do you know what I mean? You know something, you'll read it, you'll hear it from your own guides, and like, yes. And it's intellectual, and it's when it falls into the emotional epiphany the heart, that you think, now I know what that means. And of course, location and time, you need the two together to synchronize together to create that point. And that's obviously how you read astrology. It's talking to you has brought that extra information in because of the knowledge you have. And when I speak to you, I kind of take that on, and then that comes through in my own processing when I'm communicating with the nine. So leading up to the solstice, so where we are now, I asked the nine to explain more, because they were talking about the 14th of May to the 26th of May being a cleansing portal, a rebirthing and a rejuvenation, and then moving on. So I asked them to clarify more. And what they'd actually said in the transmission was, you as a planetary collective have moved through the portal for cleansing, rebirthing, and rejuvenation from your May 14th to May 26th, 2023 point. The integration of this rebirthing continues your move into your solstice point. So we went through a cleansing, rebirthing, rejuvenation. We're now integrating it. This is the collective movement. I will add that there may be the odd individual, I won't say odd, there may be individuals who have gone through this in a different linear process. Either they're ahead or they're in 6D rather than 5 or whatever. You'll know if you're that person. But the collective are moving in this synchronized way. So from May 14th to May 26th, there was this rebirthing, cleansing, or rejuvenation, depending on how that would occur for you. We're integrating what occurred in that time period of May as we lead up to the solstice. So we're integrating it all. So I asked them to talk more about this. I said, can you explain more about this cleansing, rebirthing, rejuvenation, and the integration of it in this time period? Please explain more. So this is what they said. This movement from the linear timestamps presented is collective and therefore macrocosmic. This is mirrored microcosmically, presenting individual experience as well as that globally, as in on the global stage, in all arenas, right through to the presentation of the galactic. So political and social structures, as well as more exopolitical expression, shall we say. So at personal and individual level, this could look like a complete life and or location overhaul, or smaller internal shifts and movements within. So some people could have gone through or are going through a complete life overhaul or location overhaul, or both.
I know many people who that's happening to.
Yeah, so that's huge. As the non-awakened souls, so those are the non-awakened ones, cling more and more to the old energies as they begin to crumble beneath their feet, they misinterpret the dimensional shift as a potential security loss, and therefore stand in resistance to the shifting by holding on ever stronger to that which they perceive as their security.
Yeah. This is so astrological. I just love it. This is, this is Pluto in Capricorn. This is the myth of Sedna in Taurus. I mean, it's just extraordinary. Yeah, this is really, because it's the old, almost financial security, bricks and mortar, tangible security, which is going, but that's all we've ever known as security. We're stepping into the invisible, and that can feel very scary for a lot of people because it's just ethereal. Yeah, so I really get that.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's exactly what they're saying. So they're saying this is and shall lead to territorial disputes microcosmically, as in that which is mine and that which is yours mentality. This creates an ever wider divide betwixt the non-awakened themselves. So there's these divides within the non-awakened that we're outside of. So there's this bifurcation between the awakened and non-awakened, which is constantly widening. And now there's divides between them because of this security issue, because they're misinterpreting the dimensional shift.
Yeah.
So they then go on to say those on the other side of the bifurcation, and that's all of us, those that are awake, move in the opposite direction and think less and less territorially and more in the terms of liberty and unity consciousness.
Yeah.
Yet still, even those awakened will be touched by those who cling on to the crumbling structures and will need all their spiritual tools to navigate through. They then go on to talk about one such tool. This wasn't in the original transmission. This is new information that came through when they spoke to me to give me more information. And they said, one such tool is the superhero suit, which they showed me. They took me into a visionary state where I was wearing this superhero suit. So they showed me what it was like, which all awakened souls have either accessed now or will be accessing at your solstice point. So this is a metaphor for what we're all having now or will be having. In astrological terms, and this is the bit I do not understand, and they're talking about the superhero suit in astrological terms or in astrological pattern. In astrological terms, this is as a circle with Taurus as the inner presentation and Scorpio as the outer rings.
Okay, so that's the nodal axis they're talking about. Because the nodal axis, which is linked to the orbit of the moon, currently it's an axis, so it has a north node and a south node. So the north node is in Taurus, which is the direction we have to move to for our soul's growth, which is linked to nature and the earth and simplicity and planting by the moon and all that kind of thing. And it's a very simple, it's finding joy in the simple, whereas the south node is in Scorpio, and that's what we're moving away from, which is complexity, secrets, hidden money, criminality, big money, lots of dodgy sort of dark stuff from the past that's been long repressed. That's what we're moving away to find joy in the simple, joy in nature, joy in the earth, etc. Finding our bliss through simplicity, I think, is very linked to Taurus, and that's where we're moving to. So that's so interesting. They're picking up that Taurus Scorpio nodal axis.
Okay, so I didn't know anything about that, but they're actually presenting it as if it's a superhero suit with tools in it. So obviously the sun, the moon, nature, simplicity, bliss, moving away from this old energy into the new. It may help some people, it certainly assisted me, to see it as a suit, like an armor. But what they were showing me was more of a superhero type of character. I asked them more about it. I actually said, what exactly is the superhero suit? And they said, it is as said, superhero suiting as the coat of many colors, perceived perhaps by you as your fictional Iron Man, Superman, Avengers, or Power Rangers. It is about flight or powering up, the ability to rise above the third dimensional reality at will and return to ground when chosen. And they were showing me, you can shoot up in the air and come back down just like a superhero. This is protection as an armor with infinite tools within the suit at the wearer's disposal, with new tools becoming available and online in real time. It is the plasmic Christed garment presented through your modern parlance and presentation.
God, that's beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely. So is that really saying then, Magenta, it's something I talk about a lot, that it's where you put your focus and attention. And if you can keep your focus on attention on the light, on creating joy and creating bliss, love, peace, etc., and do not give any focus or attention to the 3D scary stuff, that is actually your superhuman suit. Is that correct, would you say?
I would say so, absolutely, because the focus brings you that which you're focusing on. That's not to say that you shouldn't look at darker things, especially if they are affecting you individually, because you might need to analyze and compartmentalize and integrate that darkness in order to make a decision about where to move. So you can focus on a lower negative dark scenario as a tool to make a decision or for higher guidance, But if you're focusing on it in a sense of being brought down emotionally, then obviously you can create more of the same.
Yeah.
And this was kind of, I mean, I spoke to you about this that had happened to me personally. This was kind of happening to me with a personal situation with a family member. I was finding myself brought down a little bit. And that's when they showed me the superhero suit. I think really the superhero suit analogy was given to me to assist me with my personal situation. And then it came through in the answer to the question, because when I go through something, I move with the collective. If I'm going through a difficult situation that is surprising, didn't think that I would attract that into my life. However, I can see that there's a positive to it. And I'm actually really happy and grateful it happened in the first place, even though it was awful at the time and there's still stuff to work out. I'm so happy about the positive that's come out of it.
Yeah.
If I'm going through that, I know that a great majority of the collective are moving through that as well.
Yeah.
So that's why everything that I'm given from the 9 is something for others also.
So you're not staying stuck in negative emotion.
Oh, absolutely.
Period. Yeah.
And that's what you mean by the focus. It's not, if you are moving all the time and there's a negative situation, but you're constantly saying, well, why did this happen? Should I do this, this, or this? Shall I, not act on my subjective emotions? Shall I calm myself down, but look at these emotions as to why they're there? And all of this integration and working everything out, that's movement.
Yeah.
So your focus is always on movement and moving through it, not being stuck in it, which will keep you there. And the awakened individuals aren't doing that. I mean, they might think what they're going through is awful, but if they take a step back and look with the objective view, they'll realize, actually, I moved through that really well. And actually, there's a positive to come out of it. And I know some people, and I've had people write to me, that are in situations that would be potentially soul destroying, terrifying from maybe a few years ago to them. Whereas now they're in this calm space thinking, I'm just going to go with absolute trust. I haven't got all the information yet. Maybe the time hasn't lined up with the space yet. And that point hasn't come for them yet. So they're rolling through it. When you do that, you can't help but manifest a positive outcome, because that's what you're creating by your ability to stay in this objective place as you're moving through something that would have been a very worrying or terrifying situation a few years ago, or however long it was ago that you moved into an awakening.
Yeah, I often say to people, stay on your eagle's perch, be the observer, be aware of what's happening in the world or, in your own personal situation, but don't plunge into the negativity so you're consumed by it and then you lose that objective perspective. So it's so important, I think. I mean, they teach this a lot in yoga, to be the observer of your own thoughts, your own emotions, and it is so helpful to keep you in a good place long term.
Yes. And when you talk about that intellectually, it's not always so easy to think, okay, I get it, but how do you do it? Well, when this happened to me, I literally, when you're feeling an emotion, it's inside you.
Yeah.
It's there and you're stuck in it and you're like, So I literally take a breath and I visualize that I'm taking it out of me. So this is my emotional body right now, and I'm putting it there. And I'm looking at it in front of me. And that's what I do. I think, and that's Magenta's emotional body. It's not in me now because I've moved it out. So let's have a look at all this. What have we got here? Fear, worry, anger, all of this stuff. Okay, that's not in me now. It was. It's there. Let's look at it. What can we do with this? What can we learn from this?
Brilliant technique.
Take it out of you. Sit it in front of you. It really works. It really, really works. And everyone who's awakened has the skills to do this.
Yeah.
And will need to, because this is microcosmic as well as macrocosmic, as the 9 are saying. So we're seeing it all play out globally. This situation in the news, that situation on some TV show or in some tabloid or whatever it may be. But you've got it going on individually as well.
Absolutely.
So you can be so proud of yourself when you do this, when you are able to stay within this objective viewpoint and sail through the spiritual, because that's the ascension.
Yeah, it is.
That's what you're doing. You are ascending as you move through these situations this way. It's massive growth. And this is what is so collective and what the solstice energy is bringing up. But it's not just the solstice, it's been powered up. They talk about these series of events that have occurred in linear time. And what they were saying in the transmission is this always happens. Always in reality, there's a series of linear events because we're in linear time. But we've never really, I mean, some people have, but as a collective, we've never really had the insight to see that there are a series of events playing out in a sequence. You didn't notice it when you're in it because you're in the incarnation. But now we're going through this ascension, which is the eagle's eye view, the life review from the higher viewpoint that you would normally leave the physical body to go through. We're now going through this while we're in the physical body. So we can now see these series of events. And for 2023, we had the comet.
Yeah.
That was a major power up. It was a sign, as you and I discussed. We then moved into these two really powerful eclipses. So it's been these chunks of events that have all moved together, with the solstice being this central point, and then that continues on for the rest of 2023. Well, it's always been this way, but now it's becoming obvious to us, and because of our awareness of it as a collective, we're creating it to happen all the more in a way that can be utilized.
Yeah,
it's like these were not meaningful to humanity in the whole of the post-Atlantic era that we've been in since Atlantis. Humanity as a collective weren't using these events. There would be a few. You'd have the indigenous people, ancient tribes, and certain secret religious sects or whatever, a few awakened people, but the collective wasn't doing it. But now the collective is at critical mass for this ascension, so they are doing it. That's the difference. So I asked the 9 to talk more about something else that they had said in the transmission, where they're talking about the influx of solar energy. They do talk about the moon as well, but what they said in the transmission was the influx of solar energy, and sun plasma births itself along the rose line. So they're talking about these ley lines, this energy that's creating the time and space grid that comes together for the solstice. Along the rose line, sacred map within the stars, as the celestial pathways, highways, and swim lanes, first time they've said that, but they're bringing in the metaphor of water, swim lanes reflect the dragon egg laying patterns across the world, most predominantly shining forth from the United Kingdom and reflecting that across the rest of your world. So that's the seeding is the south of the United Kingdom, and then going out if you're looking at space in a linear sense. So lots of metaphors, lots of flame letter activations like dragons, dragon eggs. Have we had any dragon eggs laid for thousands of years? Well, the dragons haven't been able to lay. And when they have laid, the dragon egg has been taken or utilized by someone else. Now we've got all these multiple eggs everywhere. Dragons are being birthed. It's a metaphor for earth and cosmic frequency, which is the dragon. And the reason why they use the dragon is because starseeds, awakened individuals, humanity set to awaken, have come into incarnation with these memories of other times and other places. And within that would be the understanding of the metaphor of the dragon, the story of the dragon, but also actual dragons. People have asked me, are they real? Well, in a sense, we still have some reptilian beings in our wildlife, but the actual dragon, they were in multiple forms. They were in other times, in other places. The 9 say to me, in those days, there were dragons. They're not here now, but they were, and we have the memory of that. And so many star seeds are linked to that memory. And there's almost a deep sadness and are missing the dragons when people wake up to that dragon energy,
And
because they
what's
will have known
fascinating,
them.
yeah, what's fascinating, Magenta, and I mentioned this when I had the conversation with David Farrell, but I think you know Rory Duff, you're aware of his work, geobiologist, master dowser. He's got a whole number of master dowsers all over the world, and he measures energy lines across the world. And
I think so. Yes, I think I've heard his name. Yes, yes.
yeah, wonderful, wonderful pioneering work. And I wrote to him, knowing we were going to have this conversation, and said, you know, what is happening to the energy lines around the solstice? And he wrote back and he said that from all the work he's doing from the master dowsers all over the world, the energy lines after the solstice around the world are going to increase in width by 20%. And it used to be the case a few years ago that the day before each equinox and solstice, so 4 days in the year, all of the Earth's energy lines came into harmony for that one day before each equinox and solstice. Now that harmony time, as he calls it, has extended to 34 days around each equinox and solstice. And he is saying by the end of 2024, each equinox and solstice will have a harmony time of 200 days, which will lead to 200 years of peace on the earth from his work. And he is also saying that the emperor dragon lines, which are a particular quality of energy line, are all becoming activated now.
Wow. I mean, that's a wonderful way of explaining it in ways I don't really understand, especially the measurement of them expanding. But it's very much in alignment with what the nine are saying here, and in a completely different way. In fact, when I asked them to talk about the influx of solar energy and this whole sort of dragon eggs and everything, I kind of wanted more of a tangible explanation, not so much heavy on the metaphor. So that's what they came in with. And that does align with what you've said about Rory Duff's work. And he's right that this is what's happening, these activations, and understanding what they're for, where to go. It's like right now on the solstice, okay, the major one is this rose vortex in Scotland, but there will be others, and each individual will know. I can't give that out as a map because I'd be talking about the whole planet. There will be one somewhere where you are, you know. It just so happens that they are pointing to the larger one, which is Scotland at this point. But for us to be aware of the time grid and the space grid and how it lines up so that we can go and access our memory downloads. And the more of us that do that, we reach critical mass on the memory downloads that are coming. Well, of course, that will expand the energetic lines and the space outside each solstice point. Of course it will. And this is what the nine are saying. It's us that are doing this in conjunction with the Earth and the cosmos and the galaxy.
The feedback loop.
So exactly
the feedback loop. And are the nine saying, Magenta, that we have now reached critical mass with that?
They're saying that the collective are reaching critical mass at this solstice point of the awareness of what these ley lines and energy means, which is, and they say, this is a vast and complex subject. So that it's not that we're at critical mass for understanding all of it. We're at critical mass for being aware of what I've said and the ability to align with it, harmonize with it, and then add our energy to it and create it. For example, the crop circles will be giving messages. We're aligning with those crop circles. We're the ones, along with the earth and the cosmos, that are bringing them forward. When we see a crop circle, we think, well, what does that mean? We gave ourselves that message for us to then decipher, to bring it up to the conscious. But we must also be aware of the real ones and those that are set to deceive. This is the bifurcation. There's the genuine and there is the non-genuine in all things, and they are being switched over deliberately. So we must learn which is which, and that's all coming from the feeling and the intuition, which is why it's been so important to work on our intuition in the several years preceding the point. And if you've only just come into this awakening now, then that's where you would align with mostly, is absolutely working on your intuition so that you trust that higher feeling, which is emotion taken outside of yourself, and it becomes a frequency that you can observe and feel more as a frequency running through you rather than an emotion that's lodged within you.
Yeah.
And you can tell the difference between it being a part of the physical body or part of this harmonious energy grid. And that's what we need to learn the difference. When we can do that, we'll know which is genuine and which is truth, and which is swapped. It's all about feeling. But in response to that question about the influx of solar energy and soul sun plasma birthing itself along this rose line, and they said the sacred map within the stars, the dragon egg laying patterns, you know, shining forth from the UK. What does this mean? Can they give us more information? So they said, in translation for your realization, particles from solar eruptions and flares that you may know as coronal mass ejection triggers a simultaneous reaction within its planetary sphere bodies contained within its solar system region to do the same thing as the sun, if you will. The planetary body responds in kind. Yet the planetary body cannot produce within the third dimension a coronal mass ejection. Instead, it produces a planetary implosion of sorts, which stimulates, clears, and changes energetic ley lines or earth magnetic fields known to you as geomagnetic activity. Yet, this is not as a storm that you would perceive as you are presented with by your leaders. It is a natural occurrence that takes place when solar systems upgrade dimensionally. The Earth magnetic electrical fields and matching celestial magnetic electrical fields move in formation as one that cannot be detected by your third dimensional technologies and machineries. The ignorance of the workings of your solar system is therefore most hijackable to the non-awakened. Yet the awakened are presented with the instructions for solar system upgrade navigation within the superhero suit downloads. New highly charged plasmic geomagnetic bundles of particles, this is the eggs, the dragon eggs, form within the planetary bodies in response to the solar flares and coronal mass ejections that reshape the energetic formation of that planetary body. This is not, as you are told, changes within climate, but instead changes within energetic structure that are directly aligned with awakened humanity's thoughts and focused intentions, as thus shall then reshape the new upgraded planetary structure. This begins within the domain you know as United Kingdom, predominantly in the area where our conduit and she who is speaker for planetary alignments, who holds hands with Jupiter and Venus as one, reside.
Wow, that's astonishing, because you probably know, Magenta, there's been an exponential increase in coronal mass ejections and solar flares. That's just off the, you know, for instance, in 2018, we didn't have any M-class flares. Now we can have 10 in a day. I mean, that's how big the jump is. And so they're coming in at a very, very high level. And what that is doing is changing the electromagnetic field of the Earth and also changing our own individual electromagnetic fields. And that's part of that's the part of the physical effects of this upgrade, because we are assimilating new cosmic and galactic energy, which we've never known before. It's new energy that's coming in. So that's part of this very fast upgrade that we're going through. And that's why it can be so dizzying for people, literally. They can get dizzy or headaches or tinnitus or whatever, or insomnia or chronic fatigue, because we're having to assimilate this new energy so quickly. But it's also, and this is symbolized by Uranus in Taurus for the astrologers out there, the electromagnetic energy of the Earth is changing. And I think we're going to discover that magnetism is incredibly important for healing.
Absolutely. And this vortex that I was talking about that you can stand within to get a memory download, you can also get healing from these places because the magnetics is there as well. So in answer to your question, I mean, I knew that the solar energy was increasing, the ascension energies are increasing. I'm not that I don't have a great understanding of solar mass ejections and solar flares. I don't keep track of that. But I've seen people post things on social media, and I've seen the odd thing, but no, I wasn't sure that there had been a massive increase other than what the nine have told me. And putting the metaphoric together with the scientific, with the actual that's happening physically, really, really helps to put it into perspective, because you've got so many people who don't go with the fluffy metaphor and they are scientific, but you've got so many people who struggle with the science. That I've always been one. Science, physics, maths, it's always been I can't do that. I'm poetry and words. But it's nice that we're joining them up, and that's all about the left and right hemispheres of the brain, as
Absolutely.
we're all becoming these geniuses, as I said last time we talked.
And it's because of the drop. There's been a very significant drop in recent years in the Earth's magnetic field. So the magnetic field around the Earth has acted until recently as a kind of cotton wool buffer and bounced off these energies. But now that is reduced very significantly, which has left us much more open to the heavens, as it were, and to these energies coming through. And but it is part of the divine plan, because those are the energies, along with the photonic light, that are upgrading us. It's a physical
Absolutely.
process as
Oh,
much as a
yes.
spiritual process.
Oh, so absolutely accurate. And that is very much in alignment with the very next question, because you're talking about this buffer zone where these energies would have bounced off. Well, this is part of, I don't want to go on too much about a hijacking or whatever, but there have been those that would want to prevent this process and those that want this process to go forward. So there has been a sort of an overtaking of our planetary body, the moon, and that's changing as well, along with, well, they all are. It's the solar system upgrade. So every planet is going through this, but the moon is specifically changing because the moon was used as a sort of as a magnetic focus to prevent this movement and to allow this to bounce off. And of course, it's all part of the divine plan as well. It's the divine plan. It's people say, oh, no, that was deliberate. Yes, it's deliberate and the divine plan. It's both of them. It's both of them. So that goes into my next question, because they talked about this in the transmission, and I said, can you explain more about what's occurring with the moon? Because they said this now flourishes as a long-time seed point, holding the blueprints within antimatter in full formation, as the physicality of this presentation begins at your solstice point, June 21st, 2023. That was in the transmission. So this thing that's happening with the moon is also occurring on the solstice. So you've got the ground, you've got the ley line opening and the energetic magnetic, and these rose vortices coming through our body, our harmony, all the planets, and then this moon change as well. So I can go on to say what they actually said was original hijacked lunar, spelt Lunar. I'm not sure why the spelling is so important, but it is. They have emphasized this extremely, that it's important. There's something to do with the words and the way it's written. Original hijacked lunar, Lunar, space satellite observatory station, as hollowed out structure holding artificial rays as barrier or pass-through point for incarnating and reincarnating souls, now holds the blueprints within its energetic structure for the return to its organic presentation as freedom stopover, rest, recuperation, review point for aware and awakened souls, rather than a quarantine or locked down artificial gateway. New blueprinted structure in antimatter for full presentation of lunar, Luna. at solar system upgrade point, at your solstice June 21st timestamp, due to humanity's awareness of the divine feminine and awakening to the ancient knowledge of the goddess.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
So there's a massive, sorry to interrupt you, there's a massive difference between lunar, Lunar, which is the false, the artificial, and lunar, Luna. So there's a huge difference here energetically.
Yeah.
So humanity have become so aware at critical mass point of the divine feminine, awakening to the ancient knowledge of the goddess. What's occurring on June 21st, the solstice point? It's not that the moon is suddenly going to change. You know, you're going to wake up on the morning of June 21st and think, wow, the moon's different. It is, some people think that, you know, they do write to me and say that. It's a new blueprinted structure in antimatter for full presentation. What that means is humanity's thoughts have put out the awareness of the goddess, the awareness of the ancient knowledge of the divine feminine, and this is collectivized, if you will, inside this antimatter grid. It's focused humanity's thoughts, feelings, and awareness that's created. It's no longer hijackable. That means lunar, the old hijackable Lunar, and lunar, the new and original, because
Yep.
the original was always organic.
Yep.
It's you know, it's not been bought here from nowhere, but you can perceive it as that. Depends on your interpretation. So the lunar, Luna, that comes in from this grid of thought, and that sits there at the same time. So there's an overlap. So you've got the physical 3D moon, and then you've got this antimatter structure, and then they merge together. And over time, the actual physical moon will no longer be able to be hijacked as this space satellite observatory station hollowed out structure holding artificial rays as barrier. That won't be able to occur. It's physically impossible.
That's
but that takes time, and the same's happening with the Earth. People talk about the two Earths. So we've got one in physical and the other one in this antimatter formation, and then they merge together. But some go with the upgrade and some do not. That's what's happening, and the awareness of that at critical mass is there on this solstice point in 2023.
Wow, that is extraordinary. And it's so exciting because it does suggest, Magenta, that at the solstice, we're going to get a real acceleration in our upgrade.
Absolutely, especially if you can find one of these sacred sites, these portals. If you're over by what I believe to be the Rosslyn Chapel, fabulous, you're in the right place, but they'll be somewhere near you. Now, if you don't get guidance for that, you can come together with other awakened individuals. There only need to be two of you. But if you want to gather with 200, great. Come together. Bring your energies together as one. If you don't want to be with anyone, you can create a crystal grid and stand in the middle of it. You can sit with your crystal skull. Oh, and this was something they told me privately. It's not in the channeling or in the questions. Amethyst at this time is extremely powerful and very much in alignment with this whole solstice, new moon, Luna, lunar, divine feminine, and anchoring in the critical mass of our awareness and our energy. Amethyst is really, really in alignment. So amethyst crystals, if you will, are getting an upgrade. All the crystals are, but amethyst is very much part of this. You can see I've got amethyst on today because of this, and I'm wearing my amethyst goddess as well because the 9 told me about this. So there are different times to use different color rays, different crystals. Is that in the astrology at all? Anything like that?
It isn't so much in the astrology, but I'm just thinking, even if you can get a little amethyst crystal that isn't that expensive and have it on your person around the solstice, that would seem to have a catalytic action for you.
Absolutely, yes.
And it'd be quite easy for people to do that. So beautiful. No, astrology doesn't really talk about crystals very much, but you know, they are one of the original living beings, aren't they? You know, everything, there's a whole philosophy of, I think it's called pantheism, where everything is seen to be living, you know, mosses, snails, crystals, rocks, everything. And this is going back to Lemuria as well. And that's where you know, back to
Absolutely. So all the crystals are getting an upgrade. Anything that has that life force is being upgraded. The memories of the knowing is what's coming in this download in the tools of this superhero suit. So memories of Lemuria, memories of Atlantis, and beyond. If you look at that in a linear sense, it's hard for that to really be linear beyond Lemuria, because Lemuria came in a non-linear sense. But you can go to what people call Hyperborea, and you can look at that, and these memories are all coming back, and everyone awakened has the ability to tap into them. But you will move into a memory space that's right for you at that moment, because we aren't able at this point yet to hold omnipresence, which is the knowing of all things simultaneously at the same time. But what we can do, especially at these solstice points, when we're in this time-space Stargate place and we're drawing this down, we can move into the memory awareness that we need to have for our life at that time. So when you look at the collective, when you look at all the awakened people, all standing in these Stargates, then you have omnipresence within the collective.
Wow. Oh, this is beautiful. And the 9 are still in a previous conversation we had, Magenta. You were very much talking about over the next 3 years till 2026, we are going to get many more people awakening to sort of be able to access this second layer of light, if you like, this second level of divinity and multidimensionality. And are they still on track with that? Is that how you're still seeing it?
They are on track with it, yes, but obviously, as I said to you before, it's a guideline and it could change. And what has actually happened is what was predicted regarding the new awakening between when we last spoke and now, that's actually gone faster than the prediction.
Wow.
There's more awakening than expected. Now, a lot of this is a kind of a dark awakening. I don't mean a false awakening. I mean being awoken because of darkness, because of something bad, because of something negative. Like, I'm not having that. Why is this happening? No way. And then they go off and do some research or talk or whatever, or awaken however they do it. And that leads them into more study, more research, and more awareness. So that's actually happening. And this is the backfire from the groups that don't want this ascension process to occur. Everything they do to stop it is actually creating it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, because I know people who are going through exactly that right now as sort of a stage 2. Yeah,
absolutely.
Fabulous.
So yes, that's on track. That is on track. So I did go on to, I don't know how much more time we've got, but I did go on to say about one thing they actually said, and someone wrote to me and asked me about this and asked me to talk about this. They actually said in the transmission, this is the time when light workers so to become light warriors. So I wanted to know, what's the difference between a light worker and a light warrior? What does that mean, and why is it significant for the solstice? Why is the solstice the point when a light worker becomes a light warrior? So they went on to respond to that, and what they said was, the worker of light is the individual who is aware of the energy of light and utilizes this for healing self, other, and planetary and galactic environment, acquiring knowledge and the ability to upgrade and initiate true enlightenment and ascension. That's a light worker. The light warrior is the one who does all the above, yet so too is missioned to clear, navigate, and balance the negative microcosmically and macrocosmically. As in, there is, if you will, the battle or struggle rather than the flowing vertical rising, which is what we're talking about, people going through this right now. The light worker takes the path of surrender, harmony, and in some cases, transcendence. The light warrior takes the path of integration while standing as a shield for self, others, and the planetary environment. The light worker dies on the cross for the sins of others, if you will, as in she takes on collective karma as well as individual karma, as is the way of the Christed or Christed path. That's why this is happening at the solstice point, because of the awareness of the individuals in the collective of the ascension of the divine feminine, and the fact that that's creating these changes within these grid lines, these dragon lines, the dragon eggs, the vortices, the rose lines, and what's occurring with the other planets and the moon, that is creating an upgrade for everybody. So as those who are not awakened are being pushed into an awakening from a negative source, we are, if you will, on the battle lines. We're being called to do more than healing and harmony. We'll always have the healing and harmony. It's always going to be bliss, joy, and love for those that are awakened, but we're going to have to sometimes go down into these darker areas to assist with the karma of others, to help others, to take on, to, if you will, stand there with your shield and sword for others, which is what was happening to me last week. I've had to go in and be there for someone else that I love, because they aren't ready to move yet within that. They're not ready to see what that negative might be. So we're all being called to do this. We're becoming light warriors, and this is global, as in macrocosmic. And we're seeing it on the global stage as well as individual simultaneously. And it's tough and it's really difficult. It's not easy to do this. But if you have this superhero suit, you've got all these tools that are being given to you, coming online whenever you need them. Put your superhero suit on, put your hand into the superhero pocket or whatever it may be, and draw out the tool you need, because it's an infinite suit. So that's the metaphor for the tool that we need to go through this.
That's so interesting, because it's not right on the solstice, but it's on July 18th for the following 18 months after that. This nodal axis of the moon shifts out of Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra. So the North Node becomes in Aries, and Aries is the sign of the warrior.
Right, okay, because they're saying that the superhero suit is this Taurus and Scorpio pattern astrologically.
Yep.
And that's just before the solstice. And
Yep.
that's shifting into this warrior energy. So you are becoming the light warrior through. So is the Scorpio Taurus formation, in a way, a sort of a catalyst into the awakening that's coming next?
Yes, absolutely. I think each is a kind of prelude for the next stage. You know, each is a preparation for the next stage. So it's so interesting with you talking about light warrior energy, that with the North Node moving into Aries 18th of July for another 18 months, that is really standing strong with your shield, being the warrior, fighting for truth, fighting for light, you know, all of those things. It's much more assertive and dynamic. Whereas Taurus is, you know, feet on the grass, growing vegetables, you know, much steadier energy. So this is going to be absolutely fascinating, I think. But, you know, if they're still really on track with over these next 3 years to 2026, really everybody being able to access those higher levels of light, then this is a very short time frame, isn't it? A really short time frame.
We're much closer to that singularity point now. So yes, and we can draw that singularity into us now. As we spoke about last time, we talked about the non-linear and the linear. And I don't know about you, but today's the 12th. I'm feeling that solstice energy coming in now.
Yeah.
Are you? Yeah, it's there. You know, you're going into it.
Yep, absolutely. Because, you know, it's not far away. You know, we're only sort of 8-9 days away. And it's so exciting because, you know, so many people whose spiritual judgment I trust are talking about we're ahead of expectations, and we have been for the last few years, and it seems to be accelerating. So
absolutely, yes,
more and more momentum. You know, it's more and more momentum of people who are awake, who are working for the light, who are working for the good.
Yes,
that is very, very exciting. And eventually we're all going to get back to unity consciousness, which is where we're headed. But it is an accelerated timeline.
It is. This is the Stargate Ascension.
Yeah.
And now I understand why they're calling it Stargate Ascension, because even though I've channeled the information within that book, now I know more about Stargate Ascension. Yes, it's this moving through the subconscious and the memory as you awaken, but it's also so connected to what's happening on the earth as well. I know the 9 brought this forward in the book, but I've only just had the epiphany of what Stargate Ascension is, the accelerated timeline. And when you spoke earlier You said you knew lots of people that were out there grid working at this time. I got such an amazing feeling from those people that are doing this. You know, it's like each and every one of them is a master in and of themselves in the way that they're able to conduct this plasmic light. And you've got a whole team of them across the world.
Yeah.
They're the people doing this. If it us, you know, those that are aware, you can be walking down the street, and if you're barefoot, all the more so, passing your energy into the earth. They did talk about crop circles as well. I know we haven't probably got a load of time, but I wonder if I just
we're
find
on an hour now, Magenta. So whatever you
well, don't worry, we can go for that another time.
but
But they're significant. The crop circles are really significant at the moment, especially the ones that are coming up here in the south of England. They're really messages for us.
Wow. Are they activators?
Yes, absolutely. And you don't even need to go. You can go to them because you're going to get a similar energy if you're in a genuine one. But you just, it's the looking at the picture from the eagle's eye view. That's what it's there for. It's for you to see it above, to look at it from above and look down at it and actually take that as the DNA activation. Work with the knowing first of all before you look at it. Is this genuine or is this not? Work with that, discover that. And when you decide this is a genuine one, I'm now safe to merge myself with this symbol. And even if you don't understand it intellectually, allow yourself to look at that crop circle, maybe repeatedly revisit it before you go to sleep at night. Allow your meditations and dreams to show you what it means. It's everything we've been saying in this chat today. These are keys and catalysts for the memories coming back, for basically our true history as to who we are as a humanity and what we are as a planet. Because then when we know that true history and we know that true knowing of what we are and what the planet is, then we can really take that information and that's the accelerated timeline. That's the Stargate ascension. We're off and we're reaching critical mass for the seeds for this on this solstice point. So it's very exciting.
Wow, that is so fabulous. I've loved this conversation, Magenta. It's been, again, so rich. I never know where we're going to go, but it is just so positive and so exciting with all the, the difficult news out there. This is so uplifting for people to know, we create everything from the invisible. And that's why it's very hard, I think, for people to get their heads around, because our history, our lives have been so tangible and material, but we are always creating from the invisible, from energy, from magnetism, from the solar flares. So this is what is going to give people a lot of confidence, I think, moving forwards, and it's just wonderful. So if you are talking to everybody out there, if you are somewhere you can get together with others and have a group meditation, that will magnify the energy of the group. But as Magenta said, even if you're on your own, build a crystal grid and do it that way. But really do know that we are on a very fast track to the evolution of consciousness, which has never happened before in our physicality as humanity.
No, it hasn't. And I certainly hope that that is the case with people watching, that they're given confidence and that they're given that strength to actually see what's occurring within the side of the light, because that's the whole point of me bringing these messages forward. That's the whole point of you being here to decipher the astrology and all the other teams of light. That's what we're here for. Yeah. Yeah, we make magic when we come together, and it's wonderful. And as I said in the beginning, I've had so many people love our talks. So love to everyone watching. Thank you so much, Pam, for asking me to come and chat to you again. Loved our talk. Fabulous.
Yeah, so did I. It was really fabulous. Thanks so much, Magenta. Love to everybody out there. And, probably people will listen to this several times. There's a lot in this conversation. So God bless everybody. And thank you, Magenta.
Thank you.